I'm Lena Marlowe, 32, and the day I bought my $2.6 million dream home was supposed to be the day my life finally felt like mine. Instead, it became the day my parents turned against me. Within a week, they demanded I sign the house over to my sister, and when I refused, they forged my signature and tried to steal it themselves. They thought I'd built this life alone. What they didn't know is that every brick, every signature, every inch of that house was protected under something they couldn't touch. And when the police showed up at the family celebration, they planned to gloat in. I didn't raise my voice. I just watched everything they'd built collapse in front of them. The day I bought my dream home, the sky was a perfect, careless blue, the kind that makes you believe your choices are finally aligning with something bigger than luck. The driveway gleamed under the afternoon sun, and the house itself stood like an exhale after years of holding my breath. It was modern, clean, and unapologetically mine. A pale stone facade, wide glass doors, and a view that spilled into the canyon below. I'd worked 10 years for it, late nights, lost weekends, silent meals at my desk, every hour cementing my independence in ways my parents never understood. When I called them to tell them the news, I expected at least a trace of pride. Instead, my mother's voice crackled through the line, thin and tight. "You bought a house? For yourself?" she asked, as if I'd confessed to something indecent. "Yes," I said, smiling despite the chill in her tone. "Finally. Closed this morning." There was a pause, the kind that stretches too long to be innocent. Then my father's voice entered, low and deliberate. "If you really want to do something meaningful," he said, "transfer it to your sister. You already have enough. She's been struggling, and this could bring the family closer." I laughed at first, thinking he was joking. But the silence that followed cut through my chest like a thin, invisible wire. "You're serious?" "We're not asking," my mother said sharply. "Family comes before everything. If you keep it under your name, don't expect to be part of ours anymore." It's strange, the moment betrayal begins doesn't feel like thunder or fire. It's quiet, almost surgical. You stand there, holding the phone, trying to understand how the people who raised you could say something so bare, so transactional. I hung up without another word and stared at the deed sitting on my marble counter. My name, Lena Marlowe, printed cleanly across it. The ink still smelled fresh, new, like something earned. That night, the house echoed with its own emptiness. Every sound was amplified, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of settling walls. I should have felt triumphant, but instead, a hollow weight pressed against my ribs. I had imagined my parents visiting, admiring the view, laughing in the kitchen like they used to when things were simple. But simplicity was gone, replaced by a choice I didn't know I'd have to make. The next week, the county clerk's office called. A calm voice on the other end said, "Ms. Marlowe, we're just verifying a property transfer form filed under your name. Could you confirm this request?" My stomach dropped. "Transfer form?" "Yes. The deed for your residence on Windcrest Drive. It was submitted yesterday. Signature attached." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My hands trembled slightly, but my voice stayed steady. "Can you email me a copy?" When it arrived, I opened it on my laptop, and there it was. My name, my signature, perfectly imitated, but not quite. The loop of the L was too tight, the angle of the E slightly wrong. Still, it was close enough that anyone else would have believed it. The listed recipient? Claire Marlowe, my younger sister. I remember staring at the screen for a long time, not angry, not shocked, just quiet. A strange clarity settled over me. I'd spent years building a life they couldn't touch, but they had found a way to try anyway. My first instinct was to confront them, to drive to their house and demand an explanation. But something colder and sharper took over. If they wanted to play with deceit, I'd let them. I called my lawyer that evening, told him everything, and within hours he verified what I already knew. They'd used a digital submission form and mailed forged physical documents. What they didn't know is that the house wasn't directly under my personal name. Months before closing, I'd transferred it into Marlowe Holdings LLC, a company trust I'd created for tax purposes and protection. The signature they'd forged wasn't just fake, it was legally meaningless. I waited. 2 days passed. Then my mother sent a text. "We're planning a family gathering this weekend." Everyone's excited to see the new house. It was almost poetic. They truly believed they'd already won. Saturday came bright and hot, the kind of California afternoon where the air vibrates above the pavement. By noon, my driveway filled with cars, cousins, uncles, old family friends I hadn't spoken to in years. My parents arrived last, dressed as if they were hosting a magazine tour, my mother in pearls, my father in one of his tailored blazers. I stood on the steps, expression neutral, heart steady. "Lena," my mother exclaimed, sweeping me into an overly warm hug. "We're so proud of what you've done for your sister. Everyone's talking about how generous you are." I smiled thinly. "Oh, are they?" My father clapped a hand on my shoulder, the weight of it familiar and false. "This is a new beginning for the family. You'll see, everything will be better now." The relatives drifted through the rooms, taking pictures, complimenting the view. My sister followed close behind my parents, avoiding my eyes. She looked guilty or maybe afraid. I couldn't tell which. The sun spilled through the windows, lighting the marble floors and glass stairway, the house itself gleaming like a stage set. Then, just as my father began a speech about family unity in the living room, the sound of tires crunching outside silenced the room. Through the glass doors, 3 police cars pulled up, lights flickering against the driveway's stone. Conversations froze mid-sentence. My father frowned, confusion crawling across his face. 2 officers stepped in, one carrying a file. "Are Mr. and Mrs. Marlowe present?" My father straightened, irritation flashing across his features. "That's us. What's the meaning of this?" The officer opened the folder and began reading. "This is regarding an active fraud investigation. Forgery of legal property documents, specifically involving the residents at this address." You could feel the temperature in the room drop. My mother's smile vanished, replaced by a stunned stiffness. "There must be a mistake," she said quickly. "This property belongs to our family." "It belongs to Marlowe Holdings LLC," I interrupted quietly. The room turned toward me, which, for the record, is registered under my sole ownership. Every document you filed was invalid. The county verified it this morning. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the officers stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Marlowe, we'll need you to come with us for questioning." The room exploded in murmurs. My mother's face drained of color. My father opened his mouth, searching for words, but nothing came out. My sister's eyes welled with tears. "Lena, please," she whispered. "You don't have to do this." I turned toward her, my voice calm, almost gentle. "You wanted the house so badly," I said. "Now you can explain it to the court." The officers guided my parents out, their protests fading down the walkway. The relatives shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. The silence was heavy, stretching across the grand room like a shadow. The morning after the arrest, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Reporters, relatives, numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer a single one. The news had spread faster than I expected, small-town gossip colliding with a headline-worthy scandal. My parents, the picture-perfect suburban couple, now facing felony charges for forging their own daughter's name. I sat on the back patio with a cup of coffee, watching the fog roll across the canyon. My lawyer had already confirmed they'd been released on bail, pending investigation. The prosecutor was reviewing the case, and the charges were serious: identity theft, document falsification, attempted real estate fraud. But even with the legal side unfolding, what gnawed at me was how deliberate it had all been. They'd planned it, down to the forged signature and the family gathering, as if deceit could be wrapped in celebration. By noon, my sister showed up. No call, no warning, just her car pulling into the driveway like she still had the right to be there. I almost didn't open the door, but something in me wanted to hear her out. She stood there looking exhausted, eyes red from crying. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside. "You have 5 minutes." She walked in slowly, glancing around like she was seeing the house for the first time. "I didn't know they were going to do that," she said, voice trembling. "I swear, Lena. They told me you were giving it to me as a surprise." I crossed my arms. "So you just believed them? You didn't think to ask me?" Her eyes flicked to the floor. "They made it sound like you wanted to make things right between us." That part almost made me laugh. There's nothing to make right. You chose them every time they turned on me. When they took my savings for your tuition, when they told me not to come home for holidays because it would make you uncomfortable. You stayed silent. You don't get to play innocent now. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but I didn't move. The sympathy had burned out years ago. She took a shaky breath and said, "They're your parents too. You can't just let them go to jail." I looked her dead in the eye. They made their choices. Now they live with them. She didn't answer, just stared at me for a moment before walking toward the door. "You've changed," she whispered. "No," I said. "I just stopped pretending family means loyalty." When she left, the house felt sharper, quieter. I could still smell her perfume in the entryway, like a ghost that hadn't realized it wasn't welcome. That night, I met with my lawyer again. He was efficient, practical, the kind of man who never wasted words. "They're trying to claim you gave verbal consent," he said, flipping through a file. "It won't hold, but they're pushing the angle that this was a misunderstanding between family members." "Let them," I replied. I wanted on record how far they were willing to go. He nodded. "You're protected. The trust structure makes it airtight. But if you want them prosecuted to the full extent, it's going to get ugly." It already is. The following week, the story hit local news. My parents' faces on screen, my name mentioned as the victim. The footage showed them leaving the courthouse, avoiding cameras. The comments online were brutal. Words like greedy, entitled, family betrayal floated through every thread. I didn't read much, but I caught enough to understand that people were taking sides. Some pitted them. Others saw through the act. That Friday, I drove past their house for the first time in years. The same white shutters, same rose bushes my mother used to fuss over, but the place looked smaller now, as if time had shrunk it along with the illusion of control they once held. My father's car was gone, but my mother's sedan sat in the driveway. A curtain shifted upstairs. She was watching. I didn't stop. When I returned home, something felt off. The gate to the backyard was slightly open, and a faint scuff marked the patio door. I stepped inside carefully. Nothing looked stolen, but one picture frame on the hallway wall was tilted. Inside, it was a photo of me at 23, standing with my parents and sister during my first promotion dinner. My father's arm around me, his smile practiced, my mother's hand resting over mine. That picture used to mean something. Now it was a warning. I checked the security footage. At 2 in the morning, someone had walked through the side entrance. Hooded, cautious. The height, the gait, unmistakably my father. He'd come back. I sent the video to my lawyer and the detective assigned to the case. They confirmed it violated his bail conditions. Within hours, a warrant was issued. By the next evening, they arrested him again, this time with no camera crews, no pretense. The silence around it was louder than any headline. My mother didn't try to reach out after that. My sister texted once saying he didn't mean to scare you. I never responded. Weeks passed. The investigation deepened. My father's lawyer tried to settle privately, offering statements about family reconciliation. I refused every attempt. The truth was, I didn't want money or apologies. I wanted distance, legal, emotional, permanent. But peace didn't come easily. Every night, I replayed the moment in the living room when the officers read their names. My mother's disbelief, my father's frozen expression. It should have felt satisfying, but instead, it left me hollow, like justice had a quieter sound than I'd imagined. One morning, I got another call from the county office. "Ms. Marlowe, there's been an update," the clerk said. A second transfer attempt was flagged. Someone tried to reroute the property under a new entity, Marlowe Estates. I closed my eyes, jaw tightening. When? Yesterday. Submitted electronically from an IP address traced to a public library. It didn't take a genius to figure it out. My mother, desperate and reckless, trying one last time to undo what couldn't be undone. I didn't call the police this time. I drove to her house myself. She answered the door, eyes swollen, hair unkempt. The confident woman who used to dictate every part of my life was gone. "Why can't you stop?" I asked. She shook her head, voice breaking. "It's not about the house, Lena. It's about what it represents. You replaced us. You built a life that didn't need us anymore. I just wanted a piece of it back." Her honesty stunned me. There was no rage left, just exhaustion, a mother who'd confused control for love and couldn't tell the difference anymore. You could have been part of it, I said quietly. You just had to be proud instead of envious. She looked away, and for a second, I almost pitied her. But pity doesn't rebuild trust. It only feeds guilt. The trial began on a clear Monday morning, the kind of day that pretends everything is normal. I arrived early, walking through the courthouse doors with a calm that didn't quite match the noise inside. Reporters hovered near the entrance, whispering my name as if saying it too loud might change the story. My parents sat at the defense table, side by side but distant. My mother's posture was rigid, her hands clasped together like she could still pray her way out of this. My father's expression was unreadable. He looked more like a man fighting embarrassment than regret. My sister wasn't in the courtroom. I wasn't surprised. She'd vanished weeks ago after trying to mediate one last time, and I told her the same thing I'd told them: forgiveness doesn't erase intent. The prosecutor outlined everything: the forged signature, the fake entity filings, the second transfer attempt. They presented digital trails, handwriting analysis, even the security footage from my backyard. The evidence stacked up quickly, precise, and impossible to twist. When my lawyer called me to testify, I kept it short. I worked for years to buy that house. My parents tried to take it by force. They didn't ask. They just assumed they could. I looked directly at them as I said it. Neither met my eyes. After my statement, the courtroom fell quiet. You could feel the air shift, the weight of realization settling over every seat. The trial lasted 3 days. On the 4th, the judge read the verdict: guilty on all counts. Probation wasn't an option. My father received 2 years, my mother 18 months. The courtroom murmured, but I didn't react. There was nothing left to say. When it was over, I walked outside alone. The air smelled faintly of rain, the sky heavy but bright. The press shouted questions: do you feel vindicated? Will you reconcile? I didn't answer. I just kept walking until their voices faded into the distance. That evening, I went home and unlocked the front door to silence. The house felt different, lighter somehow. Not because justice had been served, but because the noise was gone. No more calls, no threats, no unexpected visits. Just stillness. I stood in the living room where everything had begun, where they once tried to celebrate their theft. The light from the windows hit the marble floor, reflecting like water. For the first time, I didn't think about what it cost me to get here. I thought about what I'd finally gained: peace. A few months later, I received a letter from my sister. No apology, no excuses, just a short note. I moved away. I don't know if I'll ever understand what happened, but I hope someday we can talk without anger. I miss how things used to be. I read it twice, then folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. Some doors don't need closing. They just need to stay untouched. Life moved on quietly. I expanded my company, started mentoring young women who were building their own businesses. The house became more than just an address. It became proof that independence doesn't need permission. Every so often, I'd drive past the old neighborhood. My parents' house was sold to a young couple with a baby. The rose bushes were gone, replaced by clean stone and lavender. Time had erased their mark faster than I expected. On the anniversary of buying my home, I invited a few close friends over. We stood on the balcony at sunset, the same view that had once felt lonely. Now it looked alive. They laughed, glasses clinking, stories flowing, not forced, not performative, just real. One of them asked, "Do you ever think about forgiving them?" I looked out over the city, the lights flickering against the horizon. "I already have," I said. But forgiveness doesn't mean return. Later that night, when everyone left, I walked through the rooms one last time before bed. Each corner held a piece of the journey: the call from the clerk, the night the police arrived, the morning I stood alone with the deed in my hand. Every memory had shape now, not as pain but as history. I stood by the window and whispered to the quiet, "You tried to take everything from me." And because of that, I found out exactly who I am. Outside, the city moved on: cars, lights, the hum of a world that didn't care about old grudges. I smiled, locked the door, and turned off the lights. The house was safe. My life was mine. And for the first time, the word family didn't mean who I came from. It meant who I chose to be.